Welcome to Lead Where You Live, Tucson Voices in Leadership. I'm Jamie Leon-Guerrero.
And I'm Raysun. This podcast is all about real people leading with heart in our community.
We believe leadership isn't about titles, it's about action. And Tucson is full of people making a difference in big and small ways.
Join us as we chat with inspiring voices who are showing up, stepping up, and shaping Tucson's future.
Let's get into it.
Hello, I am Raysun Frost with the Lead Where You Live podcast.
And I'm Jamie Leon-Guerrero.
And we are so delighted to have Chris Seidman here with us today.
Good morning,
Hello.
Chris. Thank you for being with us.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Happy to join you.
So Chris is the Executive Director of Unscrewed Theater. He's also been a performing member of the Not Burnt Out, Just Unscrewed improv troupe since 2005 and an improv instructor for the past 13 years. In 2017 and 2021, Chris was named Best Comedian in the Tucson Weekly Best of Tucson Readers poll. For over a decade, he has studied improv theory and practice with a variety of improv veterans, including educational directors of Second City and Improv Olympics, not to mention collaborating with Unscrewed Theater's well-versed and professional instructor team. He recently rekindled his love for roller coasters and believed the world would be a better place if everyone took an improv class. It's fun, and improv changes lives. So welcome again, Chris. Thank you for being here.
I love hearing about me.
We love hearing about you.
All right, this next section is all about you. Tell us more about who you are without all the titles and awesome accolades that you have received.
Well, I can tell you about how I got into improv, actually, which has pretty much been my life for the last 20 years or so. So I moved to Tucson in 2004. I didn't really know anybody. I didn't have any kind of a social outlet. And so I was looking for something to do. And in high school, I was in drama class. I took drama all 4 years. And I was talking with a friend of mine from high school who lived up in Oregon. And so I was talking with a friend of mine who lived up in Oregon. And at that time, he was doing improv with a group called Comedy Sports, which is a national group. And that kind of gave me an inspiration. I said, oh, okay, well, that sounds fun. I wonder if there's something like that in Tucson. And so I checked the internet. Luckily, in 2004, the internet was around. Thank you, internet. And I found the group Not Burnt Out, Just Unscrewed, which started in 2002 in Tucson. And so I went to go see a show. I just loved it. I thought that the spontaneity and the creativity and the humor was just intoxicating. And so after the show, I went up to the person who was hosting the show and I said, how do I do this? What do I do? I want to be involved. And they invited me to the troupe rehearsal the next week. And then after the rehearsal, they invited me back and so on and so on. And that's how I first got into improv.
So you are improv is what you're telling us, like that.
Another one of our instructors at Unscrewed Theater is fond of saying, life is improv and improv is life. So I adhere to that phrase.
I've been a Not Burnt Out and Just Unscrewed fan since you guys were on 4th Avenue at Revolutionary Grounds, like in that little yard outside. And
yes,
you did the first Fridays there. So I'm a fan, just so you know.
You go way back.
I go way back.
Before Unscrewed Theater was even around.
Yep. So that just makes me excited to see how further back before even I found you guys it went. So
yeah,
over 20 years.
Yeah.
Over 20 years. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Chris, a little bit more trying to dig deep into who you are. We want to know where does your name come from? Were you named after anybody? What about your last name? Where does it originate from? Tell us about your name.
Well, I actually had a genealogy done a few years ago. And so if you want to talk about my people, you're talking about my people, where I came from.
Or just
whatever story
how'd you get named?
Well, basically my dad's side of the family were Russian Jews, and they traveled to America at the beginning of the 20th century. I believe my grandmother, my father's mother, was born in 19, I think, something like that, and she was born actually in China as her family was emigrating to the United States. And my mom's side of the family is European, English, Irish, that area. And so Seidman is, the Russian Jewish side, I believe.
Nice. How interesting that migration route,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Through China. That's pretty cool.
And so
for sure.
how did you end up with Chris?
I'm not 100% sure, and that of course comes from Christopher, right? And I, I don't necessarily think that I was named after the, patron saint of travelers, but over my life, I've kind of adopted that. And yeah, Saint Christopher.
Nice.
And actually, my middle name, I don't want to give too much about my government name in case there's identity thieves out there. But I will say that my middle name is Patrick, right? So it's like my first and my middle name are two saints. So I'm just a saint.
Love that.
And so you've been here in Tucson, obviously quite a while. Tell us what you love most about where you live.
It's interesting because I was born and raised in Southern California. And so I moved here in, like I said, 2004. And the main thing that I noticed when I first moved to Tucson was that everything in California, everything in Southern California is so green, right? You've got trees, you've got bushes, you've got grass, and it's just so green. And so I was going from green to brown because everything in Tucson is pretty much brown. And that was the main difference that I noticed right off the bat. And what I came to love was that there's so much more than just the brown, right? There's a difference in it. And I've gotten to the point where I really like not having a lawn or lawns, grass and things like that. I love the rocks. I love the xeriscape. I love the desert plants. I love the natural terrain. I think Tucson is a beautiful place, and it is unique of its area, and there really isn't anything like it anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
In addition to, just the visual, I think Tucson itself as a city and a community is unique in its own way
Mhm.
as well. I feel so lucky that I'm able to explore all of the different elements that are found in Tucson.
hmm You mentioned that Tucson is brown, and I just realized that, our HOA colors are like 20 shades of brown, right? Like it's not just the environment, it's like the paint colors. I'm thinking coming from the like it really is, but it's 20 shades of brown, not just one. Like we need multiple different names for all the different colors of brown and the subtle green because it's lots of green just in like a different
Yeah.
tone, not that, like, strong in your face green of the
Right.
forest.
Not bright green, because
Yeah.
the saguaro green is different than the avocado green, and
Mm,
so many differences. So yeah, green. It's like we're living in the early 70s, right?
yeah.
We have brown shades of brown, shades of green.
That reminded me of old TVs, right, where they used to have, like, the shade different shades. It wasn't like the bright in your
Contrast.
face
Yeah.
colors we have now. It was like, yeah, that's kinda
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the browns. I will say, though, in defense of Tucson, for anybody listening online or watching, during monsoon season, the rain brings the desert to life. And we've got beautiful flowers and there is more green because everything's brought back to
Yes.
life. But yes, I describe it as just like, you say brown, but I'm like, everything just looks dead. Like everything just, it's so hot here. Anyway,
It's like everything's wilted, right? And
yeah,
once the rains come,
it
it
comes back to life.
blossoms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and gorgeous pops of colors and flowers, and it actually happens twice a year, which I think is pretty interesting. We do have the monsoons, but there's also those spring rains. You do get kind of like, and the flowers do, it's almost like we got 2 springs going on, 2
Yeah.
flowering moments, so it's pretty cool.
I agree.
So, Chris, tell us something that most people don't know about you.
That's a good question. Well, I mean, if you know me for more than 10 minutes, you probably already know this, but I think that there are still some people who don't know that one of my first jobs was at Disneyland in Anaheim, Southern California.
Were you one of the
And
characters?
what's that?
Were you one of the characters? I wanna know more.
I wasn't one of the characters. I was a character to be sure, but I wasn't one of the people in the character outfits.
Mm.
Mhm.
The way that it worked actually is because, like I said, I was born and raised in Southern California. And that means that my family visited Disneyland at least once a year, if not more. And so I was familiar, I'd been there a lot growing up. And so once I was ready to look for a job, I wanted to go to Disneyland and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And so in the interview, they said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to be on the Jungle Cruise." And almost immediately they said, "Okay." And this was one of my first job interviews. And I said, "Okay, is every interview going to be this easy?" And so, yeah, that was my very first job at Disneyland was working on the Jungle Cruise. And what I realized was that if you visit the park, you go on the Jungle Cruise once. If you work on the Jungle Cruise, then you have to make that trip over and 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 over again all day long. And that was something that took a little getting used to, but it was a thrill. It was great fun.
Yeah. I can appreciate that, and I'm sure anyone in our audience who has ever worked a job in a tourist destination, or I worked at a rafting company, and it's like you have to rinse and repeat the same information and still make it exciting for all the tourist people that are gonna be in doing this, once a year kind of thing. So I'm sure there's lots of people in our audience who can appreciate that aspect of those job positions, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, the reason why I mention that is because I think and one of the things that I heard while I was working there is you can put this on a resume for the rest of your life and people are still going to be interested, right? Which is one of the reasons why I still keep mentioning it. However, I think that early on, as that being one of my first jobs, taught me a lot of very valuable lessons about customer service. One of those things. In addition, I think that it also kind of fueled and continued my high school drama training and improv, right? Because every group is different. And so you have to be aware of that and cater to the people that are right in front of you in the moment. So I think that those two aspects, the customer service and the improv aspect of it, kind of set me up for things that I would encounter later in life.
And that leads us perfectly to our next question, which is how does leadership show up for you in your personal, professional, and the Tucson community life?
It's been a journey, I will tell you, because the way that the theater came about was the people in the improv troupe. Jamie mentioned when we were on Fourth Avenue, we did not have a theater. We didn't really, I mean, there was a little bit of talk about a theater, but not really any concrete plans, pardon the pun. And so I had never been in leadership, right? And so that was something that I kind of stepped into because the way that the theater came about was the people in the improv troupe got together and we decided rather than performing in different locations around town, we would make the leap and find a central location and have people come to us. And so at that time, I wasn't even involved in any kind of leadership in the improv troupe. And so once the theater started becoming a reality, I took more of an active participatory role in bringing the theater to life, to realizing that goal. And so I did a lot of I guess, for lack of a better term, on the job training as far as leadership goes. And of course, because I am familiar with the principles of improv, which are listening, accepting, and adding, I try to bring those things into my leadership style. You know, I think a lot of listening is very important. And also trying to put yourself in the place of the other folks, the other people, because in addition to, being a nonprofit organization, we are also with the exception of my salary, we are a completely volunteer organization. We're a completely volunteer organization. And so if you're dealing with volunteers as opposed to paid employees, that is a whole other level of leadership.
Mhm.
And so it's definitely been a work in progress. I am no way have a handle on it yet, but every day is a new opportunity to learn and to improve.
I feel like okay, I as you're talking, I was sitting there thinking in some ways, now look, the only improv I've ever done was through Greater Tucson Leadership's little workshop. We had a little improv workshop that was it. I've never even seen a full improv show, but it made me realize that really anyone who does improv is working on and showing their leadership skills. And you highlighted that because you said the three principles were listening, accepting, and adding,
Yep,
right? And
absolutely.
and so that right there is leadership for you. I mean, it's exactly what you said in the beginning. Improv is life, life is improv. Like you totally lead that with your leadership as well.
I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely. Well, for anyone, for all of us, when we wake up in the morning, we don't have a script on the nightstand next to us. We have an idea of what our day is going to be, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen. And so living in the moment, being prepared to be unprepared is a pretty important skill in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we're going to move into our right where you are moment, which is a chance to ask. We're going to ask you a personal question about how leadership and growth show up in your real life. We'll ask you the question first, and then Race and I will also share our answers. So, are you ready for the question?
I'm ready if you two go first.
You go first.
All right.
All right, here we go, Chris. Who are you when no one's watching? And how does that show up in how you lead?
I am, well, okay. At heart, I am a performer. And if there's anything that that you may have heard stereotypically about performers, I mean, I'm not saying everyone, but I am speaking for myself. I am a little bit, I have a sense of inadequacy, you know? And so I feel that sometimes what I do is not enough or not good enough. And there's definitely, if we're talking about leadership, if we're talking about, management, hierarchy, for me, there's definitely a sense of imposter syndrome. Not to say that when no one is watching, I'm wallowing in, self doubt. But there's an aspect of that. And there's also an aspect of improvement. Just I'm still figuring it out in the aspect of life. I recently went through a divorce a couple of years ago, and so that is also something that, when no one is watching, I'm reckoning with that, and figuring out how to show up hopefully in the best way as a single person. So, I don't know. You didn't get me to cry. Is that what you were looking for?
No, we usually cry for you, so we'll
Okay.
be good.
This one's a good one. I feel like every time we get to this part, it's always just like, "Ooh, this is such a good question."
It
Um,
is.
I feel like I'm shimmying between two words in my head, but I'm gonna go with I'm a problem solver. At GTL, we do our top Clifton strengths, and restorative is my number one strength, which is really like the problem solver, where I'm always like looking for ways to like be better, right? So like sometimes it comes across where it's like she's all like trying to fix people or fix things, but it really is just the desire to like work smarter, not harder, right? Like, how do we just processes? I can find little gaps and be like, you can do this quicker. So I think in like my problem solving, it challenges me. Like, I'm just forever challenging myself. If I'm at the gym, I'm like trying to lift heavier than I did the day before. If I'm hiking, it's like, am I going to hike longer or harder than I did before? So I'm like always challenging myself. And that shows up in leadership for me because, like, I think I am willing to say, like, hey, this can be done better, even if it's been done that way for 20 years. It's like, hey, let's. So I do think, like, for me, I love that, like, my restorative strength, I am trying to live in it. It is a strength. I have to recognize when I'm in, like, the basement of that strength, or sometimes maybe I'm being pushy or whatever. It's like I see a solution in my head and like not really listening to others. So, but for the most part, I really am. I'm a problem solver. I'm a helper. I want to make people's lives better, including my own. So I think that definitely shows up in how I lead in all aspects, right? My personal and professional and just like community life. So I really am proud of that. I think it's beneficial.
Yeah.
Yay!
What about you, Rayson?
I'm gonna go somewhere slightly different with this question. So for me, okay, I am an extroverted introvert. And so when no one's watching, I don't love huge crowds. I am like, I would rather be out in nature where it's quiet or sitting and watching a show or playing a game or just like chilling. And so for me, through up until about halfway through high school, I was like the quiet kid. I just sat, in groups. I'd sit in the corner and smile because, I always have a smile going on. And when no one's watching, I'm still smiling. I'm just quieter. When no one's around, there's definitely that piece of like, I need some of that chill time, that quiet time to rejuvenate. Because when I do see people, I want to be like this, right? I want to be chatty. I want to be out there enjoying conversations with people. And so that helps me show up as a better leader because I can be that. Not everybody needs to be, but I am definitely that part of my leadership is being the outgoing person who wants to chat with everybody, make sure everybody's comfortable, see how I can help. And then when no one's around, I'm a little more chill, rejuvenating. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, right? Like, and we've talked about that a lot, right? That just because people are bubbly and smiley and talk all the time doesn't mean they're a full-time extrovert. So yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I know that we have people at Unscrewed Theater who on stage are the most dynamic and clever and hilarious people you'd ever see. And then when you see them after the show, it's like they don't even make eye contact with you, But not it's because they are essentially introverts, but when they get on stage, they have that moment to, shine or have all of that harnessed and come out.
Yeah. I I feel like I'm gonna have to go to an improv thing because I feel like it's the opposite. Like just thinking about being in that position makes me feel like I would be on the freeze mode, of flight or freeze. Probably be good for me.
Well, Jamie read my bio, right? I think everybody should take an improv class.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's good. I think, like, Chris is showing us how it's, like, great for leadership, and then it's also great for public speaking. I think yeah. Yes, I agree. Everyone should take an improv class.
Yeah, and great for people who, like me, like to plan things out and it's a little bit more unexpected. You never know where it's gonna go. And speaking of that, making snap decisions, listening, and
Mhm.
then reacting, we are at our rapid fire stage where we are going to ask you some questions and we just want your first impulse answer.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
just say
asked for
yes.
it.
Yes. All right. Mountain views or city views?
Mountain views.
What's a natural phenomenon that amazes you?
Oh, a monsoon. We were just talking about it. Even dare I say a haboob.
Mm.
Physical keyboard or a touch screen?
That's a tough one. Mostly, I'm going to lean toward physical keyboard,
Uh-huh. Me too.
tactile.
Yeah. What's a simple recipe you make often?
Okay, well, this is way too complicated. No, but I take a can of soup, right? And then I put fresh vegetables in there. And then I put maybe some rice in there. And then I put some spices in there. And so I take this thing that is not really appetizing by itself and expand on it and zhuzh it up, so to speak.
Zhuzh up soup.
That's right.
But
Okay.
using fresh ingredients, putting fresh ingredients
Mhm.
in canned stuff.
Yeah. Love it. So I'm very curious about your response to this one. You ready? Comedy or drama?
Well, there's been an often told tale about a famous actor who was expiring, and they said, what do you have to share? And he said, dying is easy, comedy is hard. And so I would say comedy, because you can get comedy and drama out of it at the
Mhm.
same time.
I was like,
Dr. Rob
dramatic
Williams.
comedy? Like,
Well, and that's the thing, is drama, it has to include some levity, some light moments, even the most serious parts of our lives, when you look back on them, still have some parts that you can laugh at, or hopefully.
okay. What's a tool you find incredibly useful?
I want to say my phone, my cell phone.
That's where my brain went immediately.
And I don't know what that says about me or the world that we live in, but it's got a calculator. You can check your bank account, or you can even make a phone call with it.
Yeah.
That we can. Tent or cabin?
Cabin. Yeah. I'm not much of a roughing it kind of person. And that's just because I did go camping a couple of times. And even if you have like an air mattress or something, you're still like getting rocks in your back and, things like that.
Mm. What's a social media platform you enjoy most?
Hmm.
I don't
That's a
know.
tough one. I would say, I'm going to lean towards Facebook. It's of my age, of my generation. And yeah, enjoy, possibly. Addicted, probably.
Yep. Enchiladas or tamales?
That's the toughest call the entire time. I would lean towards enchiladas. I am a huge tamale fan, but the chicken enchiladas at Minadito are
Nice. Well, that ends our lightning round. And we're at the part of our segment where you get to share any special causes or projects or kind of organizations or events that you want people to know about.
great, great, absolutely. So, you talked about causes. Well, first of all, Unscrewed Theater is a nonprofit organization. And so if people are interested in supporting us, a really great thing they can do is go to our website, which is unscrewedtheater.org. Click on where it says support the theater and become a recurring donor. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be $5 a month or more, depending on what you can spare. But all of that helps Unscrewed Theater, because especially with the world that we live in now, funding and grants are a little bit more difficult to come by. So we are looking for, support and from our community a little bit more. So that would be a great way to support us. In turn, we also do partner with other nonprofit organizations every month and give them a platform at our shows to amplify their message. And so if you are a nonprofit and interested in partnering with us, please get a hold of us. Also, improv classes, Raysun. You will be happy to know that every Monday night between 6 8, we have an improv drop-in class. No commitment, no experience necessary. You just show up either in person at Unscrewed Theater or on Zoom. We do have an online Zoom
Yep.
drop-in improv class. And so you can join, yeah, you can join from wherever you are. Yeah, absolutely. In addition to that, of course, we have our improv comedy shows every Friday and Saturday night at our theater, and we're always offering longer term improv classes. We have an 8-week improv basics class, so that is a great place to start, and it starts every couple of months.
Thank you so much, Chris. If y'all are watching this and someone wants to do it with me, because I don't like to do things by myself, I do have that side of the extrovert, reach out to me and we'll go together.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Chris, for being a guest on Lead Where You Live. We really enjoyed having you with us today.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. That's a wrap on today's episode of Lead Where You Live. We hope you're feeling inspired by our guest's story and the impact they're making right here in Tucson.
If you love this conversation, help us spread the word. Share this episode, subscribe on YouTube, and tag a local leader who should be featured next.
Because leadership starts with showing up, and we know Tucson is full of incredible people doing just that.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Lead Where You Live.